So good afternoon and welcome to Corporate Finance Online Classes. This is Dr. Mahesh Monjeri, Assistant Professor from Department of Management Studies, STM College of Engineering and Technology, Dharwad. So dear students, among the factors that determine dividend policy, so yesterday we learned about the first factor, that was dividend payout ratio, and we also learned about second factor, stability of dividends. We need to continue with this factor. The next slide here makes us understand the dividend policy. Okay, stable dividend policy. So if you see here in this graph, along the y-axis, EPS, it is earning per share, and DPS are measured, and along the x-axis, duration, that is the time, is measured in terms of years. Okay. So what we see here is a dividend per share. Okay. So dividend per share has been very stable, and consistently it is being increased. So under such a circumstances, so as you can see here, the dividend per share paid by the company in this example is stable. Yeah, over a period of time, it has definitely increased. Okay, not decreased. So such a stable dividend policy results in increase in earning per share. Okay, so though you can see there are many ups and downs. Okay, but overall, if you put a graph, the earning per share is increasing. These ups and downs are due to the ups and downs in the stock market. Okay, but overall, the earning per share in this example has been increasing. So we understand that a stable dividend policy can result in increased earning per share, thus maximizing shareholders' wealth. So it can thus be seen that while the earnings may fluctuate from year to year, but overall the dividend per share is constant. To be able to pursue such a policy, a firm whose earnings are not stable would have to make provisions in the years when earnings are higher for payment of dividends in lean years. Lean years means the year in which the company sales revenue have decreased and earnings available to equity shareholders are lesser. In such years, the company has to make provision for additional funds so that they can maintain that stability in payment of dividend. So only companies with high credit rating or the companies with abundant financial resources will be able to pursue stable dividend policy. Okay, so any questions on second factor, stable dividend policy? What is it, how it affects the dividend policy, and which kind of companies can adopt stable dividend policies? Any questions or anything you don't understand?
No.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll move on to the third factor. That is the legal, contractual, and internal constraints and restrictions. Okay, so there are three separately: legal factors, contractual factors, and internal constraints and restrictions. So we're going to consider them one by one. Let us understand what are they and how they have an impact on dividend policy of a firm. And sometimes it also forces or suggests the finance manager to devise a dividend policy in a particular way. The first one among them are legal requirements. Legal stipulations do not require a dividend declaration. So you must understand that the payment of dividend on equity shares is not mandatory by law, but they specify the conditions under which dividends must be paid. Under these conditions, which are specified by law, okay, company cannot stay without paying dividend. So under such conditions, company must pay dividend. So such conditions pertain to, okay, company may or may not pay. Such conditions pertain to capital impairment, net profits, and insolvency. Under these conditions, a company may not pay dividend. But if the company is not facing any of these situations, company must pay dividend. That is what we need to understand. So let us learn these three conditions, okay, that are legal requirement and how they affect the payment or non-payment of dividend in detail. The first one is the capital impairment rules. So these are laws, okay, specified in the books of law, okay, or business law, which the finance manager must know. So dear students, that is why you understand why in MBA, though you choose finance, HR or marketing in second year, but in first year you learn a lot of subjects like business law, business environment, HRM, marketing, accounting, okay, you name, so many subjects you learn, because once you reach the position of a manager in any domain, be it marketing, HR or finance, you are required to be aware of many aspects related to business environment under which you will be taking your decisions. Okay, a person who is not aware about the business environment, legal environment, natural environment, economic environment, cannot become a manager. It is as simple as that. Okay, so let's go ahead with the first legal requirement, capital impairment rule, and let us see what it says. Legal enactments limit the amount of cash dividends that a firm must pay. Company simply cannot pay out dividend the way they want out of all the earnings. A firm cannot pay dividends out of its paid up capital. Otherwise, there would be a reduction in the capital, adversely affecting the security of its lenders. So when equity shareholders purchase equity shares from a company, they make the payment, right? That is called paid up capital. So a company cannot pay dividends out of this paid up capital. Say for example, if the paid up capital of a company is 1 crore rupee, okay, whatever, there are certain number of shares which the company has sold and investors have purchased and made the payment for the equity shares. Out of that money, if you make the payment, out of 1 crore, the paid up capital come down to, let us say, 900 lakhs, for example. Okay, so 90 lakhs, for example. If 10 lakh rupee they make the payment, the paid up capital will be reduced to 90 lakhs. So this is not allowed by law. So what is the rationale behind this law? The rationale of this rule lies in protecting the claims of preference shareholders and creditors. Please remember, why a company cannot make dividend payment out of the paid up capital is to protect the interests of preference shareholders and creditors on the firm's assets by providing a sufficient equity base, since the creditors have originally relied upon such an equity base while extending the credit. So when preference shareholders purchase preference shares of a company, or debenture holders purchase debentures, or when financial institutions and banks give loans, okay, to the company, they give loans, okay, on the equity base of the company. In case if the company becomes insolvent, okay, so there will be some provision made by the company, okay, to repay the loan amount or debenture amount. So that is the reason why a law, that is capital impairment rules, restrict a company from paying dividends out of the paid up capital. So a company cannot pay dividends out of paid up capital. So finance manager must be aware of this. Try to understand. Okay, why managers read more, they learn more, is to have knowledge and make the correct decisions. Second legal requirement is about net profits. The net profits requirement is essentially a result of the capital impairment requirement. In that, it restricts the dividend to be paid out of the firm's current profits plus past accumulated retained earnings. Okay, so law prohibits a company to pay dividend out of current profits and past accumulated retained earnings. So a company cannot use current profit and retained earnings. Alternatively, a firm cannot pay cash dividends greater than the amount of current profits plus the accumulated balance of retained earnings. It is again to protect the interest of the creditors. And third is under the situation of insolvency. If a firm is said to be insolvent in two situations. First, when its liabilities exceed the assets. I hope you have understood this by now after learning accountancy in semester 1. And second, when it is unable to pay its bills, a firm is declared to be insolvent. So when a company is declared as insolvent, this company cannot pay dividend to its equity shareholders. Again, the rationale of the rule is to protect the creditors by prohibiting the liquidation of the near bankrupt firms through cash dividend payment to the equity owners. Okay, so any queries here? The first part was all about legal requirements, under which conditions a company may not pay dividend, or under which circumstances a company is restricted to pay dividend to equity shareholders. Okay, so if a company is facing any of these situations, the finance manager will not be able to pay dividend in that year. This is how legal requirements influence the dividend policy or the dividend decisions to pay the dividend or not to pay the dividend. So any questions? Legal requirements, capital impairment, net profits, and insolvency. Any questions? Anybody at home who can reply? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
You have doubt?
No, sir.
Okay, you are at home, but you don't have a doubt.
Yes.
Yeah. Then let's go ahead with attendance first. Yeah, for at least attendance, everybody should be at home. Or you can tell whether your neighbors are at home or not. Okay, so Abhijit.
Yes, sir.
Abhishek. Alain.
Present, sir.
Amrut. Anagha.
Present, sir.
Anusha Kautekar.
Present, sir.
Anusha Achari.
Present, sir.
Anusha Kautekar, yesterday were you absent?
Yes, sir. I was absent. Sir.
Okay, thank you. Anushri.
Present, sir.
Ashwini. Asra.
Yes, sir.
Swati.
Yes, sir.
Balappa.
Present, sir.
Bharti. Chinmay.
Sir.
Who is present? Bharti is present. Okay. Bharti present. What about
Yes, sir.
Chinmay? Chinmay not present. Okay. Deepa.
Yes, sir.
Dodda Basaya. Ganesh. Ganesh is also
present, sir.
he is present. Okay. Iranna. Shrikant.
Yes, sir.
Karthik. Karthik is absent. Then Lakshmikant.
Sir, present, sir. Karthik.
Karthik present. Lakshmikant. Present. Manjula. She is present or absent? Manjunath.
Present, sir.
Yes. Muttava. Muttava is absent. Nagamegha.
Present, sir.
Nagraj, Nagashri,
Present, sir. Sir, Manjula present.
I'll mark 1 minute.
Sir, Naga.
First Manjula 1 minute. Manjula present, then who else is present?
Bhaveshri present.
Nagashri is present. Okay.
Sir,
Nagashri
Shivkumar
is-
present, sir.
ಇನ್ನ ನಿನ್ ಮಠ ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲೋ ತಮ್ಮ ತಡಿ ನಿಮ್ಮೂರ್ ದೂರ ಐತಿನ
Okay, sir.
ಸಾಕ್ಷಿ is present. ಪವನ್,
Present, sir.
ಪವಿತ್ರ,
Present, sir.
ಪೂಜಾ ಬಳ್ಳಾರಿ,
Present, sir.
ಪೂಜಾ ಜಿಯನ್,
Present, sir.
ಪೂಜಾ ಕದಂ,
Present, sir.
ಪೂರ್ಣ,
Present, sir.
ಪ್ರಜ್ಞಾ,
Present, sir.
ಪ್ರವೀಣ್,
Present, sir.
ಪುನೀತ್. He answered movie song questions. Okay. Rakesh, then Ruchita. Ruchita is also not there. Okay. Keshav, then Sahana,
Yes, sir.
Samiksha.
Sahana present.
Sahana present. Samiksha, then Sanjana,
Present, sir.
Sankalp, Sanket Kumar,
Yes, sir.
Shilpa MN,
Present, sir.
Shilpa Ganji, Shilpa Ganji. Then next, Shiva Kumar.
Sir, Shivkumar present, sir.
ನಿಮ್ ಊರಿಗೆ ಬಸ್ ಬಂತ ನೋಡಪ್ಪ.
Okay, okay, sir.
ಶ್ರುತಿ,
Present, sir.
ಸೌರಭ್,
Present, sir.
ಸೃಜನಾ,
Yes, sir.
ಸುಮನ್,
Present, sir.
ಸುಮುಖ್,
Yes, sir.
ಸುಷ್ಮಿತಾ,
Present, sir.
ಸ್ವಾತಿ ಪೋಲಾ,
Present, sir.
ತಬಾಸುಮ್,
Present, sir.
ಉದಯ್ ಕುಮಾರ್, ವೈಷ್ಣವಿ,
Present, sir.
ವರ್ಷ,
Present, sir.
ವೇದೇಶ್,
He was present, sir.
yes, ನಿಷಾದ್. Anybody who skipped attendance? ದೊಡ್ಡ ಬಸಯ್ಯ, yeah, market present. Puneet also. Puneet 1 minute.
Sir, Iranna.
Puneet is also market present. Dodda Basaya, then Iranna. Iranna is market present. Yes. Anybody else? That's all. Okay. Then let's continue our classes. Okay, and also I hope that all the students, concerned students, have sent their resume to Mr. Chetan Rajput, store manager, brand factory. So he will reply to me now after lunch maybe. Your internships are confirmed. Company has already provided approval. Those who are present in this class among the students who have shown interest. Okay, students, can you see this PowerPoint slide? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, how about now? Can you see the PowerPoint slide?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So let's go ahead with the second. Okay, situate. Yeah, I think we finished this. So among the three, we considered the legal requirements. What are they? And how they can restrict a company from paying dividend to equity shareholders, which alters the dividend policy or dividend decision of a firm. Second factor in this set is contractual factors. Okay, so let us learn about them. Contractual requirements may also restrict a company from paying dividend to equity shareholders. Important restrictions on the payment of dividend may be accepted by a company. Okay, see, who will put restrictions on a company regarding payment of dividend to equity shareholders, especially creditors. Before giving loan, okay, a bank or a financial institution may enter into a terms and agreements that under these circumstances, the company should not pay dividend to equity shareholders. For example, okay, if the company has okay, just money which is sufficient to repay the principal amount and the interest for that year, EMI, which we call. Okay, so then it should repay the loan for that year, principal amount as well as interest. Okay, so out of that money, they should not pay dividend to equity shareholders. Again, it is to protect the interest of the creditors. Important restrictions on the payment of dividend may be accepted by a company when obtaining external capital other than equity capital. What are the other sources? A loan agreement from a bank or a financial institution, a debenture, indenture while selling debentures, or a preference share agreement while selling preference shares, or a lease contract. So these companies or investors may put in their terms and conditions regarding restriction of payment of dividend under certain circumstances. So a finance manager should remember these things. He should read the company documents and remember. Such restrictions may cause the firm to restrict the payment of cash dividends until a certain level of earnings has been achieved, so that the money is sufficient to repay the loan as well as or interest on debt or dividend to equity shareholders, or limit the amount of dividends paid to a certain amount or percentage of earnings. Since the payment of dividend involves a cash outflow, firms are forced to reinvest the retained earnings within the firm under such restrictions. Therefore, contractual constraints on dividend payments are quite common. Hence, they alter the dividend decision of a firm or dividend policy of a firm. So, I hope this is easy to understand. The payment of cash dividend in a violation of a restriction, if a financial institution or a bank or debenture investors in debentures or investors of preference shares have drafted a agreement or a contract wherein they have restricted the company to pay cash dividends under such circumstances, and if the company okay violates such a restriction, it would amount to default in the case of a loan, and the entire principal would become due and payable. The company has to sell its assets and repay the principal amount. Okay, the default penalty will be so huge. Keeping in view the severity of penalty, so severe the penalty is, the financial manager must ensure that the amount of dividend is within the covenants already committed to lenders. So dear student, that is why I have been telling you, please read everything, read your textbook, read the notices that we send to you, read the instructions we send to you, and understand and follow accordingly. You will be safer. Same way tomorrow when you do a job, or you start your own business, or you continue to take care of your farm fields. Okay, there is an environment, law prevails everywhere. If you are not aware, if you do not read the instructions or notices sent by competent authorities, you will be in trouble. So please develop a habit of reading and understanding. After reading and understanding thoroughly, if you don't understand something, okay, there is always somebody whom you can clarify with. Okay, in case of college, it is your teachers. The third factor among the legal, contractual, and internal is internal constraints and restrictions. Other than legal requirement and contractual requirements are external to the company. But apart from that, a company may have constraints within the company itself. Due to the situations that prevails within a company, okay, it may restrict payment of dividend. For example, liquid assets. Once the payment of dividend is permissible on legal and contractual grounds, it's not that a finance manager will run and pay the dividend. Next step is to ascertain whether the firm has sufficient cash funds to pay cash dividends. Without knowing that, you cannot simply go and announce dividends. Second internal constraint is growth prospects. Another set of factors that can influence a dividend policy relates to the firm's growth prospects. The firm is required to make plans for financing its expansion programs. So if the company is growing phenomenally, it would require funds to reinvest or invest for the growth plan. Such a company would definitely give away lesser percentage of the earnings as a dividend to equity shareholders, and remaining amount they retain and reinvest for the purpose of growth or expansion. So growth prospects in this way alter the dividend policy or dividend decisions. And third internal constraint can be financial requirements. Financial requirements for firm are directly related to its investment needs. The firm would formulate its dividend policy on the basis of its foreseeable investment needs. If the company sees that in future or in next year, that year, they are going to invest in new projects or expansion, so they prefer to pay a lesser percentage of the earnings as a dividend to equity shareholders, so that they can retain a larger amount as retained earnings, which can be used for the purpose of investing the future investment needs. Okay, so these all are the internal constraints. Okay, so any questions here? Any questions? Okay, screen sharing is stopped. Okay, so any questions you have on this third factor? Legal, contractual, and internal constraints and restrictions. Any questions? Yeah, again, I had to ask, right? Anybody home? Or everybody is singing song or having lunch? Yes, Anjana, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Any doubts?
No, sir.
Okay, okay. In that case, okay. So if nobody has a doubt, then let me stop the class here. You can enjoy your meals. Okay, so I'll continue with tomorrow. There is a little bit, okay, small part is remaining in the chapter. Okay, so happy lunchtime and see you tomorrow again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, welcome. Bye-bye.